On the back side of the black, there's a plastic here.
Sure.
Right, yeah.
Oh, I thought you wanted black pen.
Figure being able to see is probably a good idea.
I'm gonna press record. And we're ready.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting for Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. I'll look for a mover and a seconder to open the meeting. Moved by member Paquette, seconded by member Foisy, that this meeting be opened at 6:05 p.m. All in favor? It's carried. The adoption of the agenda, I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Moved by member Paquette, seconded by member Langlois, that the agenda presented to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting dated September 2nd, 2025 be adopted as prepared. All in favor? It's carried. Adoption of the previous minutes, I'll take a mover and a seconder. Moved by member Foisy, seconded by member Paquette, that the minutes of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting of August 5th, 2025 be adopted as circulated. Questions or comments about the minutes? All in favor? It's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. We'll move into presentations and the public meeting part of the agenda. So there'll be no comments or interruptions from the Planning Advisory Committee members during this portion of the meeting, or anyone else in attendance during this portion of the meeting. There's a few things that'll happen. I'll read a declaration of public hearing. We have individuals from TULIC here who will deliver a presentation. Appreciate that. Our planning administrator will also provide a report. And then if present, members of the public who would like to make a presentation will be afforded the opportunity to do that at that point. And then I'll wrap up the public meeting. So that's kind of the order that this will happen in. So I will read the declaration of public hearing. Buckle up, it's long. Take notice that the Planning Advisory Committee, on behalf of council for the Corporation of the Township of Bonfield, is holding a public meeting tonight on September 2nd, 2025 to consider applications made under Section 51 and 34 of the Planning Act in regards to lands legally referred to as part of Lot 32, Concession 7. The proposed application for the draft plan of subdivision, reference B8 2025, and an accompanying application for the zoning bylaw amendment, reference ZC1 2025, were submitted by 1000328-150 Ontario Inc. and seeks approval for the creation of 18 new lots, with individual lots proposed to have a reduced minimum lot size of 0.5 hectares and specific lots proposed to have a reduced frontage of approximately 30 meters. If a person or public body that files an application of a decision of the Township of Bonfield in respect of the proposed subdivision application and or zoning bylaw amendment and does not make an oral submission at this public meeting, or has made a written submission to the Township of Bonfield before the proposed subdivision and or zoning bylaw amendment applications are determined, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss all or part of the appeals. One, has a person or public body made a written submission to the Township of Bonfield?
No.
No. Two, the applicant's agent will now deliver a short presentation to summarize the applications as submitted. So members of TULIC, if you'd like to come forward, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm just sorry. I'm just thinking that the AC is on. I want everybody to hear us. So I figured.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I believe I've presented and met everyone previous roles in my career. My name is Steve MacArthur. I'm senior planner with TULIC. in the North Bay office. And we're here tonight, but we hope you'll consider a very exciting night for the Township of Bonfield and in particular the Hamlet and Rutherglen. We represent the Degania Group companies who are looking at making an investment in the community to the tune of an 18 lot subdivision that we have made formal application to have approved. And here to answer any and all questions about that application this evening. I'd like to introduce Mackenzie Van Horn. She's done most of heavy lifting on this file and we'll be running you through a brief presentation about it. And then we're both available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
Can everyone hear back there? Okay. I insisted that the AC was on, so I will calm down. So as Steve mentioned, I'm Mackenzie Van Horn, and we are both professional planners working at Tulloch. We prepared a pretty brief presentation just to speak to this proposed 18 lot subdivision. And as Steve mentioned afterwards, we are available to answer questions. Next slide. So Steve and I first became involved with this project in early 2024 when the Degania Group engaged us to do some due diligence work. So when we are approached about a project, we always review provincial and local policies just to make sure the application is going to be consistent with the provincial policies and in conformity with the local official plan. We quickly found that, as I will discuss in a little bit, this proposal ticks all the boxes. In our opinion, it meets provincial and local policy. So our next step was to meet with Nathan and Simon for pre-consultation to learn about any studies or requirements that they may have in order to deem this application. 2 studies were required: a hydrogeological study to ensure that there's enough water to service these lots, as well as ensure that the water drawn to support these lots is not going to have an impact on neighboring wells. A scoped environmental impact study was also required, as there are unevaluated wetlands located just south of where the subdivision is. So we did submit an application for a draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment, and that was deemed complete and circulated in July. So that's just a little bit of background of how we got here tonight. Next slide. As Steve mentioned, this is for a proposed 18 lot subdivision. The property is located in the hamlet of Rutherglen, just south of Highway 17. And it has access from existing Talon Crescent, which is a residential subdivision. The lands are designated as residential focus area in the township's official plan, and it is zoned R1 residential first density. A zoning bylaw amendment has been applied for. The reason for this is that the lots on the cul-de-sac do have deficient frontage just due to the circular nature of lots on the cul-de-sac, as opposed to the more rectangular shaped lots that have more frontage. But this is really a minor ask. The lots are sufficient in size and they have ample room for future residential development. A zoning bylaw amendment is also required as the lots are 0.5 hectares in size, and I believe the official plan requires 0.8 hectares. I do want to note that the 0.5 hectare lot size is permitted in the official plan as long as you have a supportive hydrogeological assessment, which we do have. The zoning bylaw is just a way to formalize and recognize this lot size. Next slide. As professional planners, we do have to evaluate whether the application is consistent with provincial policy, as well as the local official plan. In this case, in our professional opinion, the proposed draft plan of subdivision and the zoning bylaw amendment do achieve this for quite a few reasons, which I've listed on this slide. First, the subdivision represents a very logical extension of Talon Crescent. The proposal increases the housing supply by allowing 18 new lots in the R1 zone, which will allow for single detached dwellings, but also allow for secondary units. The residential use is compatible with the surrounding area. So when I speak of compatibility, we look for things that may cause compatibility concerns, such as barns and industrial uses. After a screening, we determined that there was nothing that would pose an incompatible risk or consideration to these new residential lots. The development will increase the number of residents in the hamlet, which is anticipated to have positive benefits for local businesses, as well as add to the tax base of the township, which can allow for things like local improvements and community benefits. As I mentioned, the proposal is supported by a hydrogeological study, which means that based on the engineer's review and assessment, there'd be no negative impact on neighboring wells. And an environmental study also found that the proposal meets requirements of the Endangered Species Act and provincial requirements. And there's enough room outside of the 30-meter wetland setback for future residential development. So in our opinion, this proposal should be supported, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
We can go back to the draft plan slide.
Sure.
That's great, thank you. We'll now call upon the planning administrator to summarize the report that was provided to the planning advisory committee.
Yes, so I'll try not to go into too much detail, but there's
It is called the summarization.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so as noted, we have two applications for consideration. We have application reference B8 2025, which is proposed draft plan subdivision to create 18 new lots on part of lot 32 concession 8, with the retained lands comprising part of lot 32 concession 7. And accompanying this, an application for a zoning bylaw amendment reference ZC1 2025, which, as Mackenzie noted, seeks relief for a reduction in frontage of 30 meters and a reduced lot size of 0.5 hectares. And the application is submitted by 100032815 Ontario Inc. So the proposed draft of subdivision has been accompanied by reports, as mentioned, including the hydro-G, the ecological study, and also this draft plan itself. So these documents have all been made available on the website for the public to view, for the planning advisory committee to see. We had a statutory consultation period, which went longer than minimum, so we could get as much feedback as possible. Haven't really received too much in-depth feedback at this stage. So the land proposed to be developed as part of the subdivision can largely be described as farmland with an unevaluated area of wetland development constraint area located in the southeast corner of the proposed development area. The remainder of the property includes a mix of wildflower meadows, treed areas, and other defined water bodies and development constrained areas. And from a planning policy perspective, property is designated within the adopted official plan as forming part of the Rubber Glen Hamlet settlement area and falls within the residential focus area. So the principle of establishing some form of residential use on this property is established. And the township does recognize the opportunity that exists to work in conjunction with the developer to introduce new and diverse forms of housing to help the township meet its housing target strategic supply. From a zoning perspective, the applicant sought approval for a custom special zone to replace the existing R1 zoning. And any amendments to the existing zoning would reflect the applicant's goal of developing 18 new lots as single family dwellings to be served by their own on-site sewage system and well. Precise amount, built form, and design of development will be enforced through signing a subdivision agreement. And obviously there'll be other agencies involved in this process, consultation on the way. The North Bay Matter Conservation Authority being the ones that would issue ultimately a permit for such dwellings. The township may, as in any major development of this case, may seek a third-party review of plans and drawings, just to provide extra value into this process. So we're clear about what the design standards specifications will be moving forward. Just looking, there's some provisions in here that as they relate to the R1 zone at the moment, so it'd be a maximum lot coverage of 20%. There's setback information contained there. So we've done like a detailed review of the provincial planning policy statement. Several policies in there, including policy 2.1, planning for people and homes, which states in part 4, the need to provide for an appropriate range of mixed housing options and densities required to meet objective requirements for current and future residents of a regional market area. We're also continue to have conversations with the applicant and their agents regarding this future development. And obviously, this is one step in that process tonight is to have a conversation. In terms of rural lands in municipalities, the hydrogeological study was submitted in association with the application, and this indicates there is capacity to serve 18 lots as proposed. Infrastructure and facilities wise, policy 3.1 refers to kind of the need to support effective and efficient delivery of emergency management services. There was a request made by the fire chief for a dry hydrant in association with this development, but conversation continue on that. In terms of transportation, we note that there is an existing Ontario Northland stop at the gas station just off the highway. There's also potential for active transportation connections within the community. Policy 3.6.8 refers to stormwater management. At the time of writing this report, we're still in discussions with the applicant and their agents, but we have requested a copy of stormwater management block grading and drainage plans. Part of the position on this really just because we've experienced not too long ago now these extreme downbursts which caused a lot of damage to municipal infrastructure. We just want to make sure that the roads and streetscapes in the future have been designed to a standard that could accommodate potentially any extreme weather events, and we think that would be in the interest of everybody. So we've also there's some policies related to potential trails or connectivity in the area. Agriculture-wise, we noted there are no barns within specific proximity requiring any form of detailed assessment with the minimum distance separation calculations. In terms of the official plan, the township again, 2013, our official plan, we have policies including policy 2.2.2, which relates to natural environment and resources. Policy 2.2.3 is more related to affordable housing, isn't proposed here. Policy 3.1 applies to settlement areas, including the hamlet of Rutherglen. And really just that noting that we're trying to direct growth towards the hamlets and make them more livable areas that are subject to regeneration. We welcome the investment that's being proposed here and contributes towards that overall goal. And also policy 3.2 applies to land use compatibility. Again, with the studies that addressed most of the concerns regarding this. Trans-Canada Pipeline cuts through some of the retained lands to the south, way to the south of property, but beyond the range that might be required to be assessed in detail in the context of this application. We note the railway corridor that exists to the north, and the majority of, with the exception of the eastern portion of Lot 14, the rest of the development is outside a 100-meter radius, as might typically be expected in terms of that sensitivity of the land use in relation to the railway lines. We know that Rutherglen is a hamlet that's subject to future development, and we're here to support that and encourage it. With policy 5.12, which is about threatened species. Further consultation is ongoing, including with the Ministry of Natural Resources, to understand how, as the development moves forward, we can ensure that the biodiversity is being protected in a robust enough way. Other policies relate to nesting sites and also the plan of subdivision. So we know that in the R1 zone, dwelling single detached uses are permitted use in that zone. And as required under the Planning Act, to say appropriate agencies, bodies, and neighboring landowners were consulted. That was completed on the 24th of July, and written comments were requested to be made by Friday, 22nd of August. So in terms of the feedback, the North Bay Matsworth Conservation Authority hasn't raised objections to the proposal. It does note the proximity of the approximate regulated area and concurs really with the applicant's proposal to ensure a minimum 30 meter buffer setback from that to keep that protection. There's also, they're saying there's sufficient room on the lots as proposed to accommodate at least in 2 different locations. An on-site sewage system as would be required for a 3-bedroom dwelling as is likely to be developed on the property. So the MBMCA also notes that there's 2 areas for highly vulnerable aquifers on the subject lands. Hydro One didn't have any specific comments other than to say they would reach out to a local distributor who works on low voltage distribution facilities to make sure those connections are satisfactory. The Ministry of Transportation hasn't provided any comments this time, nor has the Trans-Canada Pipeline. Public Works Manager offered a few comments, again relating to what I mentioned previous, that a stormwater management plan would be requested. Engineer drawings, obviously, just to back up what's actually being proposed for the road infrastructure. And also that offer to work in conjunction with the developer to, see to some of the brushing and ditching that needs to take place to enhance what's already there at this moment. We can make sure it's all integrated. So to summarize, this planning report has provided a summary and preliminary analysis of applications submitted for an 18-lot subdivision and an accompanying zoning bylaw amendment. The applicant submitted a planning justification report, hydrogeological study, a wetland delineation and bobolink eastern meadowlark assessment report, and a draft plan that can support the applications. And if approved, it would effectively follow the provisions for the R1 zone, with relief sought for a reduced lot frontage of approximately 30 meters, down from the 60 meters as usual, and also a reduced lot size of 0.5 hectares from the 1 hectare, as would normally be required. And that would be it.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll now open it up to members of the public who will be afforded the opportunity to make an oral representation with respect to draft plan subdivision B8 2025 or zoning bylaw amendment C71 2025 as submitted by 100032815 Ontario Inc. If anyone is interested in making a presentation, I'll ask you to raise your hand and I'll call upon you to make a presentation. I'll just remind speakers they're entitled to make up to a 5-minute presentation on the topics listed a moment ago. All speakers must identify themselves to the recording secretary by name, address, and contact telephone number. It seems like a very respectful crowd, so I don't think this will be required, but there shall be no other comments or outcry made during the individual's address. That includes from the back row. Should you not conduct yourselves in an orderly fashion, you may be asked to leave, and the committee may or may not be able to answer your questions or concerns at this time, but we'll do our best to ensure that any unanswered questions will be followed up, and I will obviously turn it over to planning administrator or the consultants if questions come up that need addressed. So with that, is anybody interested in making an oral representation?
Can I talk on behalf of planning and design, or do I need, I'm planning and design, working at MTO too long.
Planning administration, planning.
As a planning advisory, or can I
We will
speak as
after.
a person?
Well, that's a great question. I would imagine.
You'll have an opportunity.
Conflict to
Yeah.
speak as the person.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so,
in this role, you're the planning
so I
advisory
can speak
committee.
up in the planning advisory.
Yeah, when we get to
Yeah,
that,
comment.
yeah,
Okay.
for sure. Seeing none, okay. So this will conclude the public session of the meeting. Thank you very much. And we will turn it into the Planning Advisory Committee to provide any comments following for the applications as noted. So I'll turn it over to, we'll start with you, Gina. Yeah.
I just want to say, I think Dugonye subdivisions are great. I've been to almost all of them, just out of even personal interest. But one of my questions was, I've looked at some of the success and people's satisfaction. Why did they choose Bondfield to go with such minimal lots when Tread Lightly has been so successful and it's larger lots, or Corbeil 2 acres? And that's just a question.
An attempt to answer that question. So the vision that our clients had was trying to really build something that allows for home ownership, right? Get somebody into a home. The lot sizes themselves are not that different or very typical to what we've designed in East Ferris. Tread Lightly was one of their first
Yeah.
kind of larger ones. And you can't really use Oak Ridge. That was a condominium. That was a completely different application. It was a draft plan of condominium, but consistent with a lot of the things that they've done on Corbeil Road, Quakeway, Leving, some of these areas where they're designing lots that are large enough to accommodate under the Hydro G study that can have water to service them and also accommodate a septic system for a home. So I hope that answers the question, but it's pretty consistent with their general size and nature of the land.
Yeah, I just want to add on to that. Those subdivisions are in rural areas of East Ferris, whereas this is in a hamlet. So the hamlets are where you would want to see smaller lot sizes in order to get more homes into the hamlet and make better use of that land.
Okay, can I comment on that? Yeah. So with the small lots, and I know they're being promoted maybe as starter homes and that sort of thing, but we noticed in the hamlet, and no disrespect to anybody in Bondfield, of how those homes are crowded. Like those lots, there's a lot going on within a lot. And most families, when they come to the rural, they're looking for country living, even though they're in a hamlet. And also there's the house, the well, the septic, a garden. There could be a fire pit. Later on, they want a garage. They come with 4-wheelers. They come with boats. That's why they're moving here. And so I'm just wondering, like from, on the other side, seeing the smaller lots in the hamlet of Bondfield, I'm sure you've been through it, and what people like to have on their properties when they move to the country, like seem to be going with the minimal. And I mean, I want to be proud of that subdivision in 5 to 10 years, or when it's finished, that it doesn't look like what happened in the smaller lots within the hamlet. So just, I was just a little disappointed that the lots were so small to accommodate, and I want everybody to have that country living dream, after everything is said and done.
So I think to answer your question, going back to Mackenzie's point, this is actually in what we call the urban area of the hamlet of Rutherford, right? So it's got a different lot size requirement and configuration. Really what dictated the size of the lot was again, those factors of the hydrogeological study, and also accommodating a septic system and a well on each of these properties. We were doing a little bit of math, Simon, before the meeting started, and the building envelope on these, at 20% is 10,000 square feet. So, and don't get me wrong, no one's building that I'm aware of at a 10,000 square foot house, but at 20%, that's, it could be a 1,200 square foot house with a large garage and all those amenities that you're speaking about, right? So, it's also consistent with the neighboring lot fabric, right? In fact, it's larger than Town Crescent, which was approved under previous policies and rules. So I think that's the main difference. The province, through its provincial policy, is encouraging, as you're probably aware, density and to move people into concentrated areas. However, this development, I think, offers the best of both worlds. you're in the country, literally. And you're in a community, which is within the Rutherglen urban service area, right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of the best of both worlds. It's kind of, there are people seeking that, seems to be a popular,
I know there's still a lot of lots for sale with that smaller and they're taking longer to sell. And that's what I kind of hear out in the community or when even my kids were looking for lots.
Yeah.
Like they say, like to accommodate, they just find it lots and then I might as well live in town. Like, what's the benefit?
yeah.
Yeah, so I was just wondering what determined I would have just liked to have seen a little,
Yeah.
stick with the 0.8 or something.
To tell you that we have had other properties that they investigated, and I have no doubt that, you know, if the interest is there and there's enough of a market, they would look at some rural opportunities. We have screened them, as Mackenzie's talked about, from a planning perspective, a number of opportunities. So I wouldn't doubt that there would be an opportunity for a rural estate subdivision at some point, which are those larger rural lots that would meet your policy. In
Yeah,
these
I
areas.
was just,
Yep.
the minimum, like the 0.5 that was presented to us.
Yeah.
And the additional dwelling units, could these 0.5 fit an additional dwelling on it?
Yes.
With a bigger septic if required?
Yeah, so the building permit, every time, of course, you get a building permit, you have to go get
Yep.
a septic approval. So, you know, that would, I'm not going to speak for the conservation authority, but they did indicate that there's adequate space for the system and all that. They base that space on a typical 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, single detached dwelling.
Mhm.
You know, in our experience, the ability to add an additional dwelling unit or those types of things, even what we call granny suite, which we're all familiar with, an additional separate building. That would simply be, you know, an application and an approval through that process to see if it can be accommodated and may be reviewed on an individual basis. But certainly from our client's perspective, if someone wanted an additional dwelling unit built into their unit, they would of course negotiate that with those purchasers.
Mhm. So my biggest comment is the lot size, that a lot of feedback was that they felt the 0.5, even for just a starter home with kids running around and that they found it small for country.
Your worship.
I have the same concerns as Gina, but I just wanted to mention the lot size is based on urban planning, right? And because I just wondered what you're going to do with all the land left over. You have 80 some hectares there,
Not much,
eh?
not much. To be
No?
honest. For one, that is the end of the current service boundary. Okay, that is the end of your current urban service boundary. I think Simon in his comments talked a little bit about the Trans-Canada Pipeline. There's also an MTO right of way, which I know this committee is probably familiar with. It's not a right of way yet, but it is. Anytime we submit a planning application, you get that letter back that says this is future corridor. And that type of situation. Some of the environmental work that was done speaks to some of the challenges of the wetland areas and some of those that we've identified and stayed out of through this application. So to answer your question, if there was an opportunity on the remainder to do a rural lot, you know, that met the rural policies, that might be possible, but at this time, that's not something we're considering. So it is retained lands. It's large enough for at this point, one single detached dwelling on a large piece of land.
So there's no other phase besides the 2 that are seen up there.
No.
So you think that it's going to be a nice subdivision? Going to,
My client only builds nice subdivisions. They do not build, they're not interested in anything but good quality. So they don't invest in the community if they don't think that they can sell properties and homes in that community. And they think there's a market in Rutherglen for the type of lot and house that they hope to provide to the market. And I think it's important to note too, like, they're taking a leap of faith as well, right? They're not, it's a great unknown. Is it going to, when they put these available for building? Is it going to be of interest to them?
And just to go further, I think that it's pretty exciting that there's going to be a subdivision built in, especially down that way. And I think it's pretty exciting news that, again, for our tax base and for a lot of reasons. And I think I'm pleased with it. And I had the same concerns as Gina. And that, you know, the lot sizes are a bit small, but
I don't doubt the builder, or like I said, I follow, yeah, up on the hill, his homes and calendar and
Yeah.
appreciate them. It's just the question of after the house is built and the neighborhood, you know, after.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks. You have anything here? Yeah, is Talon Crescent, is that all sold out? Likely? There's a few more
I
lots.
don't know, there's still some lots available, I would imagine in that, and maybe that speaks to your comment of, you know, the smaller size is not what someone's looking for, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, because as you can see, obviously the lots being proposed are probably three times the size of some of those available on Talon, so I think the streetscape will be a little bit different with that 20%, you know, lot coverage, which I do not believe they'll even come close to touching at the initial onset. You're going to have very large yards, very large lots with a small.
Maybe one will motivate the other.
We, you know, and not to flip my old MPAC days hat on, but it's been shown again, time and again, that a reinvestment or new investment in an existing neighborhood does nothing but drive up both the interest and the value of the properties around it. And whether that's, you know, tearing down a hospital and building homes or building a new phase of a subdivision, but the impact that has is that the existing homes tend to go up in value and also reinvested in, right? So creating that community that you're looking for in the neighborhood that you're looking for.
And another question, what's a dry hydrant?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of discussion about dry hydrants. So without exception, the fire department, every time we do a development in any sort of rural area, asks for a dry hydrant. And I don't blame them. They're looking for a dry hydrant. If there's a fire issue and the pumper truck needs to be rebuilt, they need resources.
That's hydrant tapping into water.
Unfortunately, you can't ask the private sector developer to do that. You can ask, but they're not under, you know, that's not under obligation to build that for you. So we, in our pre-consultation conversations, what we suggested was, and Ms. Bucket spoke to it, you're going to have 100 years of tax assessment that you're going to be collecting or more off of these homes. And that is where in the municipal budget, if there's a need for a hydrant in a municipal park that services the needs of the fire department, that's where the dollars for that would come from, not from the developer, quite frankly.
we already have a building out there for you.
I know your chief wants a fire hydrant, you'll have to, or dry hydrant, you'll have to take it up with him.
Anything else?
Perfect.
I have one more
Oh,
question.
yeah, sure.
I wanted to mention that in here where we read the involvement of our public works superintendent. And the plans go to him as well. His concerns he would address the roads, right? And then question, once they become a street, then they become our responsibility to plow them and maintain them?
Yeah, great question, and thanks. I meant to come back to that because Simon touched on it in his report. So what we are seeking is draft approval of a plan of subdivision, and I know it's been a while since we've done a subdivision in either Bonfield or Rutherglen. So what happens under the act is you grant a draft approval for 5 years. Okay, so I like to refer to it in our world as the ticket to go. We have the blessing of the planning authority to go do the subdivision. Now, what's involved in what you're seeing here compared to what the final plan of subdivision looks like? That includes the things like stormwater management plan, the lot grading plan, all of those considerations that are conditions of an approval of draft plan. We don't provide them at time of draft plan application, because you can imagine the cost and the expense to get someone to do that without some sort of assurance from this committee that, yeah, we like this, we're good to go, please proceed with your plans and your application, right? And so that draft approval is good for 5 years. They have 5 years to fulfill any conditions of draft approval. And those are everything from where is the community mailbox going to cash in lieu of parkland dedication. All those types of items are included in the draft approval. And then we, on behalf of our client, have to meet all those conditions prior to the final subdividers agreement being registered. So I can tell you that they're not intending to take 5 years to do that. They would like to do it much sooner than that if everything goes well. We had a pre-consultation with your works people and looked at some of the just very initial drainage courses, some of the offsite improvements, some of moving some historical easements that we know that aren't really doing anything at this point. So they would all form part of our grading plan, our stormwater management plan, all of that we would give to the staff, and if they choose to peer review it, that's up to them. Or we just work directly with the staff to address what it is that they want, desire in terms of water flow, storage, all of that, road improvements.
And no laneway or anything, so for the children, they would have to come all the way down the street to get to the playground that's up the road?
We had a conversation about that, and there was some initial conversation about, do they want to park or do we want cash in lieu of parkland? That's really a council decision as to what you want to do. In our experience, what happens in your official plan is you identify areas where parks are needed, whether they're district parks or neighborhood parks, whatever they are. And if those already exist, as you said, there's a perfectly good park up there, then the typical format is you do a cash in lieu contribution as part of the subdividers agreement towards, and you can use that for your park facilities and use it in any way you want. Getting back to your question about those connections, we didn't want to formalize any sort of connection because there's an existing subdivision here, right? And so going through what will be somebody else's backyard or something like that. And then in addition, you've got the active railway line as well. So we thought funneling from the end of the cul-de-sac down through out that way was more appropriate, in our opinion. And as we all know, kids love to play in the cul-de-sacs as well, especially in the winter when, snow and all of that. So it's a slow traffic, safe environment. So we didn't have a connection out of there because we didn't really see where that would be a good idea, to be honest.
What's that big piece?
Yeah, that's just it's a leftover piece, part of lot 14. There could be someone who wants a larger accessory structure or something, like that fire pit you talked about. That was part of the discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I'll just add a couple of comments. I'll echo what the mayor said, which is this is very exciting for our township. So appreciate that. It's and to Member Langlois' point, it's even more exciting that Degagné is the company looking to build a subdivision here. So that's very exciting for our municipality. I will say I don't actually share the concerns on the lot size. 0.5 of a hectare is 1.23 acres. It's actually more than enough room for a boat and a fire pit. I have a little less than that myself. I live in the hamlet of Bonfield, and I don't feel cramped for space by any means. So I think this will provide a good mix of housing or housing opportunities for our municipality, and while also allowing people to stretch out just a little bit within their properties. I moved from the city of North Bay, where I lived on the typical lot size there, and this is my lot in Bonfield is significantly bigger than what I had in North Bay. So I appreciate the fact that it's over an acre and won't be. I don't believe it'll be a crunched space for housing. So appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. This will conclude the public session of the meeting. If anyone wants to be notified of the decision of the approval authority, you'll be asked to fill out the request form, and you will be notified. We'll leave it on the edge of the desk here for anybody to sign up before you leave if you'd like to be notified. And I will look for a mover and a seconder to move this forward. So moved by Member Paquette, seconded by Member Foisey, that the Planning Advisory Committee receives this report as an update regarding application reference B8 2025 which proposes a draft plan of subdivision to create 18 new lots, and application reference ZC1 2025, which proposes a zoning bylaw amendment in association with application reference B8 2025, seeking relief for a reduced lot frontage of 30 meters and a reduced lot size to 0.5 hectares on lands legally described as part of Lot 32 Concession 8, with the retained lands comprising part of Lot 32 Concession 7, and that staff representing the Township of Bonfield be instructed to continue working with the applicant along with the municipal planning consultant on this file to conduct further analysis and negotiations, and where applicable, the staff proceeds to prepare a draft subdivision agreement that will ensure positive outcomes for the township. Any other questions or comments?
We recommend this to council.
Right now we're recommending staff continue to work with the consultants and the owner to kind of finalize some of this, which will then come to council. Is that correct? Yeah. So actually, I have a whole thing Simon wrote out talking about the next steps. So I'll read the next steps and then we'll call the motion just so everyone's. So next steps of the process will be for staff to continue working with the applicant to review and discuss the potential terms of the subdivision agreement, and that this matter will return at the next scheduled meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee on Tuesday, October 7th, 2025. And then it just says, please note, unless the applicant were to propose further changes to the applications as submitted, this meeting now concludes the general public's participation in the process, and various external agencies will continue to be engaged throughout the development of detailed proposals for the property.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
just before closing, I just wanted to make one statement or request. There was a mention by Mr. Blakely about a peer review of the environmental study by the M&R. So the author of the environmental work that we did was Valerie Murphy, who may be known to some people in this room. Valerie is ex-M&R, also the Conservation Authority. And there was a lot of work done prior to the draft plan being developed. The recommendations from that work are being implemented right now with regard to bottleneck and some of the considerations for seasonal work and road clearing and making sure that it's not in the migratory season and things like that. Getting a peer review of that from the M&R will take years. If anybody's made an application to those, it's painful. So with all due respect to our friends at the M&R, we have a perfectly valid, good, well-authored study that's being implemented and through the recommendations. And I just want to make that request because that could certainly slow down our process substantially. And I know our client's really anxious to build some housing here. So I'll leave it with that. And leave it with the staff to consider.
Thank you. And I'll just say duly noted, and I believe it's coming back already to a meeting. We'll ask staff to continue to update the Planning Advisory Committee on progress and recommendations for anything that is material and might slow up the process considerably. Obviously, we would want to ensure that the Planning Advisory Committee and through them, council gets to make a few decisions as to what would potentially slow up the process or not. If it's warranted, fair. If it's not warranted, we would need further discussion to ensure that we're doing what's right for this process. So
I do have a question about it. I agree that we should be moving forward with this. But are we saying we don't have to bring this back to council for the approval to move forward on it?
no, it comes back to council.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, this is just the Planning Advisory
This
Committee.
is just through planning?
Yeah,
And then once we have everything together at this
Yeah.
point, then we bring it back to council?
that's right.
All
Okay.
of these motions go to council as recommendations,
Pardon?
and then council, all of these motions go to council's recommendations, and then council will be adopting
Okay.
the same motion.
Considering, same motion.
Okay.
Yes, fair.
Okay, all in favor? It's carried. Paper. Is there any correspondence for this evening?
No.
Hearing none, we'll move to the adjournment. I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Member Foisey, seconded by Member Langlois. Thank you. That this meeting be adjourned at 6:55 PM. All in favor? That's carried. Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.